Michael Meade concludes his telling of the Firebird story. A discussion of the story follows.
So the horse of power had just said, "Grieve not, the trouble is not now, the trouble is before you." He then said, "Mount up, and we'll return to the edge of the world." The hunter mounted the horse of power. They set off along that path again, and going along a short time or a long time or whatever time it took until they arrived once again on that shore where the grass meets the edge of the blue sea. And going along the shore there, they came upon a great, huge, old crab. The horse of power went directly to it, planted one of his hoofs of iron on the back of that crab, and pinned it right there, immovable on the shore. The old crab spoke up. Said, "Don't give me death, rather give me life. Allow me to have my life, and I will do for you whatever I can." The horse of power said, "I'll give you your life if you retrieve from the bottom of the sea, from the place where the ocean is its very deepest, from below the great rock that sits there, the wedding gown of Vasilisa the Beautiful." A great turbulence began in the sea, and the sea itself seemed as if it was a boil. Foam rose up, waves going this time in all directions at once, and soon enough, coming out of the sea, all manner of crabs and lobsters and turtles and all those things which carry a shell on their back, all of them coming directly to the shore, for they had been called by their elder. They gathered there on the shore around the old crab. And he said, "I wish for you now to go to the bottom of the sea. You know where I mean, to the great rock that is there, to go below that, and to take from there whatever is there, hopefully a wedding gown." Having heard that, they all turned in their various and awkward ways and began to trek back towards the water. They disappeared below the surface of the blue sea, and for a while, nothing happened in the world above. But after a time, the water began to become turbulent again. Waves began to go in all directions. Foam began to show everywhere, and out of the water once again came the thousands of crabs and lobsters and turtles and sundry other crustaceans. Fearing being stranded when the tide went out, they came anyway. And what they brought was a golden casket that had been below the rock. They gave the golden casket to the elder crab. The elder crab gave it to the horse of power. The horse of power gave it to the hunter. The hunter mounted the horse of power, looked into the casket, saw in fact that there was in there a gown made of silver and gold, turned the horse's head towards the palace of the king, and they set off in that fashion. They went along whatever time it went when the horse of power goes his swiftest. And soon enough, they arrived again at the courtyard before the palace of the king. The hunter dismounted, went up those now familiar stairs, entered the great hall, went directly to the king, gave over the golden casket with the gown inside. And the king said, now, let's have the wedding. But Vasilisa the Beautiful said, I won't have it. I won't be married. I won't even consider being married unless he who brought me here and he who brought the casket with my wedding gown here is put into a cauldron which has been preheated to white hot, to a disturbing boil. Unless that happens, I'll attend no marriage at all. The king, for his part, had no objection to this plan. He immediately called forth the workers. They brought forth cords of wood, piled them right there in the great hall, set them afire, placed above it a large black cauldron filled with water, and stoked that fire until the cauldron was glowing. At that point, the hunter thought to himself, I think I am learning the meaning of fear. I am beginning to recognize trouble. And when he said that, he also said, I wish I had never picked up that feather. I wish I had listened to the horse of power. And as soon as he said that, he thought of the horse. And he went to the king and said, as a man about to die, may I make a request? The king said, fine. The hunter said, I wish to visit my horse one more time before I jump into the boiling water. The king said, it won't cost me anything. Go right ahead. And so the hunter, as was his way, turned and walked back down through the hall, his head down, his eyes fixed on the ground, wetting the ground with his copious tears, went down the stairs into the courtyard, went before the horse of power and said, this time, I think I found trouble. The horse said, what's the cause of the grief now? The hunter said, the beautiful princess Vasilisa has caused there to be a great fire and a cauldron set upon it and water in it boiling, and it is now necessary that I jump in it. I wish I had listened to you. I wish I had never picked up the feather. I am learning this fear. I've seen enough of trouble. And he continued to weep. The horse, for his part, simply said, I told you. I told you, if you picked up that feather, that these things would follow. But now, enough grief is enough grief. I'll give you one more piece of advice. When you go back in and the servants come to fetch you, to put you into the boiling cauldron, do not wait for them to reach you. Rather, run forward yourself and leap into the cauldron. That's my advice. Well, what can you do at this point? The hunter turned back, went up the stairs, walked the length of the hall, and stood there before the king and the beautiful Vasilisa. And the king directed the servants, and the servants came towards him to bring him to the cauldron. The last time he knew he had not followed the advice of the horse of power. This time, he did not know what else to do. Seeing it as inevitable, he ran forward himself. He leapt right into the cauldron and disappeared below the surface of the boiling water. After a time, he appeared shortly again and went down. He came up again and then disappeared. A third time, he came up and came directly out of that cauldron of boiling water and stood there before the entire court, the king, the beautiful Vasilisa, and it was evident to everyone that he looked better now than he did before. He was clean, handsome, looked as if he had been polished. His eyes were clear and bright. He stood erect. It was incredible. The king could not take his eyes off of him. The king began to think, if he jumps into that boiling water and comes out not only alive, but better looking and more majestic than he was before, the same thing will happen when I jump in. It must be. And after all, I am the king. And if anyone's going to look majestic around here, it should be me. Well, he didn't think on it too long. And soon enough, he was running directly for the cauldron. He made his leap, went right in, disappeared below the surface of the water, and was never seen again. Until they drained the water from the cauldron, found the body laying there, took it outside, and buried it. Pretty good, huh? You think it's the end? That all having happened, while everyone else in the kingdom was busy preparing for a wedding, the entire place having been decorated for the wedding, people having been invited from all places, from the very edge of the realm, turkeys had been cooked, various types of fowl had been roasted, black bread had been baked, and white bread and brown breads and all other types. Cheeses had been cured. The finest of barley beers and hops lagers had been brought up from the cellar. The oldest of white wines and red wines had been brought. The musicians had come forward. Poets were ready with new verses. Everyone was there and ready. Why waste such a night? Why waste such a wedding? The beautiful Vasilisa was staring at the hunter in his new state. The hunter was returning the gaze much as he had done in the tent by the shore, by the ocean. It was evident to everybody. When a wedding is prepared for, the wedding should be had. And that's exactly what they did. They had the wedding right then. It was a great night. Great poems were told. Singing was done by all the people. Dances that were done that night had not been done in thousands of years. When they finished the entire thing, they decided to start over again, just to make sure they had really done it. Finally, the whole thing was over. Everything had been consumed. The hunter was now the king, in fact. The Vasilisa, the beautiful, was the queen. And the two of them reigned in a great manner and in great style, brought goodness to the people, and everyone in the kingdom was satisfied. And everyone lived happily forever after, or at least until the hunter and Vasilisa the Beautiful had their first argument. The question is, what's the role of the dress? And it is a strange thing that after, the Firebird has been found and the most beautiful woman in the world, and there's a downward move to what seems almost superficial. And notice that now, instead of the great Firebird and the horse of power, it's now down on the ground and below the ground into the water with what is considered the crab, the lobster in one story, the turtle in another. A real change has happened, and one way to say it is, with the entry of the most beautiful woman in the world, the whole lunar moon thing has entered, and the crab is one of the old animals of the moon. So it's now moved into the lunar area, and it's also moved down closer to the ground, what is lowly and what is going lower.
There's one little thing about the garment. In order for the soul, if we take her as a soul, for it to enter into the world, which would be to marry him, it must be clothed in some form. And that was a very old idea, again, Neoplatonic idea, that the soul gets clothed in an ochema, which was some sort of a garment body. And for her to be able to do this, for this to come, she's drifting out there in a little boat. It's these from the beyond, and for her to come back into, she has to be put on the garment of the body, in a sense.
Yeah, good. I'll do another one too. In fairy stories, oftentimes in the last section of it, the girl, for example, in the full version of Cinderella in Russia, learns to make shirts. She makes such beautiful shirts that the king hears of her through her beautiful shirts. Now, many people believe what's being referred to here is the heart, which is the area covered by a shirt. So that it's interesting that my wife Ruth thinks that a lot of the old sewing that was done by women in ancient times was a meditation in the same way that you do meditation on a mantra. And it was the meditation of going in and out, and in and out, and in and out, and in and out, and you're making something around the heart. You're going in and out, and in, and it's very beautiful. So therefore, notice where we've gone. We've gone from the hoof of the house of power. We've gone through the warrior material. We've come into the lover. Then there was a return again, and then you were sent down. Maybe sent down to find something in your heart, to get connected to your heart. Isn't that where we have to be before the story's over? And guess who goes down there? Crabs that are really connected to your lower spinal cord. You didn't go up here to find your heart.
Well, the important thing that it's a crab and not a diving creature is that the crab walks backwards. We always say that about a crab. And the symbolism of the crab is that it walks backwards, even though it walks sideways. But nevertheless, this backwards movement is that the way down is what we call regression in psychology. Well, you can't go downward without going backward. And that's a whole backward movement, which is completely different from the heroic movement. You regress, you feel worse. It's moonlight, it's not sunlight, it's you don't know where you are, and that begins to take you down into the water.
So, one doesn't try to understand a story like this. We're just continuing to talk about it a little. And at this point, you ask yourself, what motions do I know in the psyche in which I go backwards and I go downwards and I feel more childish or more regressed? I feel more primitive. I feel earlier. I don't feel like the 20th century anymore when I do that. What does it feel like in your body when that happens? These are 6 or 7 different places in your body.
The question is, what's the significance of the wedding gown being inside a casket? And you can hear the resonance in the question. You know all those old stories where the fool weeps at the wedding and laughs at the funeral? They put together the wedding with the burial. It's from the bottom. Good.
It's mortality. It's the dress of mortality. The soul was immortal floating out there in the little boat. But by getting into the dress of mortality, that makes the whole thing no joke any longer.
Yeah.
And that's why he's most scared when he has to jump into the water, because then it's life. That's really life and death. It isn't just impossible task. It's life and death.
I'll give you another one. See, none of these answers are true or false. They're all different answers. Here's another answer. Oftentimes, in the end of a fairy story, after a lot of labor, a gown will appear. 3 gowns sometimes. The gown of the moon, the gown of the sun, and the gown that's like the stars. Now, when you get to that point, you're coming to the point, I think, in which the human being stops being obsessed with himself and realizes that those stars are a dress. The sun and the moon are a dress. This is the point at which you stop polluting, because you're honoring the universe as a whole. You're not only honoring human beings. Does that make sense to you? We're not at that stage yet in the United States. We're still cutting down all the forests in Washington. We're not honoring the dress that is like the sun and the moon and the stars. And that dress can only be found when you go way down underneath and you get crabs and stuff to help you.
Question is, comment on the fact that the hunter makes the first active move after deliberation of picking up the feather. After that, he's carried along by the desires of the king, the horse's knowledge, and everybody else. This is the type of story that it shows the oldness, the ancient quality of the story. The hero is a momentary thing in the old way. One doesn't stay heroic. One heroic move is made, and then everything else happens and carries one along. In the very old stories, the work is done not by the I, the me, the recognizable initial one, but by all the great movements in the psyche. So it's talking about the movement of the psyche as opposed to the intention and goal orientation of the ego. The stories, as they go on, they move closer and closer to more mysterious stuff, and it gets harder and harder to identify what's going on.
The problem with listening to these stories is that they are just so stories. They're like intricate mechanisms in which every single part in there is right. And when you don't understand it, you usually find something wrong with the story. But it's not something wrong with the story, it's that there is something in the story that you can't wrap your mind around. Is there anything beyond it being inside you, is the question. Psychology has put everything inside us. We think it's somewhere. You point to yourself, you point to your chest as if the king and queen live inside there somewhere. Yeah. Well, the my king and queen is not the king. Can you imagine that there are powers? Auden says there are powers. We are lived by powers we pretend to understand. And psychology pretends to understand the fairy tales by placing all these things inside. And that's a legitimate move for the psychological level. Absolutely legitimate move for the psychological level. But there's a mythological level which regards them as powers that affect us but are not inside. Or as we said at the very beginning with Blake, emotions are not to be owned as my emotion, my rage, my jealousy, my anger, so on, but they are divine influxes, and they come at you, they move into you, and you're all jealous for 4 hours, and then they go away again. Or you wake up at 3:30 in the morning and the demons are sitting in the bedroom and they're giving you a lot of shit for about an hour about what a fuck up you are and how it all went wrong, and the demons have walked in and they're divine influxes and they sit there and you wake you up, and about an hour later they're gone, you go back to sleep and you get up the next morning and eat your OJ or whatever. It's something mythological beyond the psychological. or in addition to the psychological.
If you went on top of the Acropolis in 600 BC and you saw that unbelievable statue of Aphrodite like 10, 15 feet tall, covered with gold and so on, and everybody around it and all of that, you would never imagine that that one was inside of you. You wouldn't say, that's my feminine side. Because the whole fucking Acropolis would blow up.
Beautiful, beautiful.
And say, an insane person has just entered here.
A man said right at the beginning of the day, this desire stuff seems dangerous. It is. Getting near the king is absolutely getting near danger. Getting near the most beautiful idea, thing, image in the world is absolutely dangerous. It becomes an issue of life and death, and it's really what we want. I mean, you know what I mean? What did Campbell say in that quote also from the beginning of the day? It's to possess the bride, mother, destroyer. Yeah, depending on whether one waits a little too long for the servants to come and drag one, or one leaps in, determines whether this is the stew of great love and life or the stew of death.
But Michael, it's just as dangerous to stay home. That's the most dangerous place statistically there is.
That's right.
And the most dangerous room is the bathroom. So,
really?
Yes. And the most dangerous people are your relatives.
See, another way to look at this is to say that you're meeting some of these 6 or 7 activators in this story. You are meeting the king, who is one of the prime activators. The woman seems to be related to Aphrodite and that whole wild part of the lover material. And you're going on with these. Now, if you don't want to meet any one of these, just stay depressed the rest of your life. It's okay. Depression means that you're not in touch with any of these. And you intend to stay out of touch with them, in which case you'll be depressed the rest of your life. If that's what you want, fine. This story says you want to fuck around with the king, you'll be in trouble, but you won't be depressed.
Bly, Hillman, and Meade each give some closing thoughts on desire. They conclude the day as they began, with poetry, accompanied at first by Michael Meade on drum, and finally by musicians David Whetstone and Marcus Wise on sitar and tabla, respectively.
All right, let's go on, because we want to think a little bit about desire. I mean, that's where we are today. And I'll just tell you one thing that I learned from Edinger's book called The Anatomy of the Psyche, which is a book on alchemy, that there are 2 things in the world. There's desirousness, which is what is the God in the malls, that you want to buy more and buy this and buy food and buy VCRs. That's not desire. It's desirousness. And the image in alchemy is a wolf. And then there's such a thing as desire. And the interesting image for the desire often in the alchemy is a king. Desire is related to the king. So until you get in connection with your own king, you won't know what your desire is. Is that clear? You'll just be a yuppie. Another image is a lion. Isn't a lion connected?
Yep, absolutely. Yep.
Would you say something on desire, whatever you think should be said here?
I said what I wanted to say about appetite, that desire may start with appetite and be concealed in appetite, but it's the imagination of the appetite. To let it go farther, what does it really want? And it may be very small things too. Another thing we should say about it is ambition, the importance of ambition. And that you're often put down as being ambitious, or you shouldn't have ambition, or you're only after power, and so on. But as you know, the word ambition comes from the ambit, or walking around. And it has to do with the ambit, the walking around the kingdom. You don't have a kingdom unless you have territory, unless you can walk around and extend your range. So part of the place of desire may be concealed in what your ambition is. and the risks that ambition bring you. I'm not saying that terribly well, but it's a start.
I tend to connect a lot of the opening of desire with this period in youth. That poem that I said this morning, the Rumi poem, Where's That Boy with the Red Shirt? You know the one. That one of desire, that somewhere in that adolescent period, something opens in every one of us, or we wouldn't be here. That is the opening of some desire. Some accident occurs, some feather drops, some phrase in a poem, some phrase in a song happens that opens up the heart of desire. I can remember at 14, the song on the radio, That's My Desire, was the name of the song. And we just walk around singing, to spend one night with you, to gaze into your eyes divine, that's my desire. I mean, it was so clear. We were walking up and down the streets doing it. So that thing stays there, and sometimes the sadness that we have is that we haven't heard news of it anymore. We've lost touch with it. And we were recently somewhere and talking about desire, and a man gave this quote, and I just want to repeat it because I loved it so much. It's from Camus. And he says, "A man's work is nothing but a slow trek to rediscover through the detours of art those one or two images in whose presence his heart first opened." The thing is that it isn't always a new territory to conquer and more kingdoms and my new life and my transformation into the new me. It's the return, if the gods should give the grace for it, to those few images that really opened my heart.
Right.
Someone has asked me to do a poem that I wrote about my father when he was in the hospital, and it comes into this area that we were talking about, that James mentioned, how much has your father done any fathering for you that you haven't thanked him for yet? So he's lying in an old people's home, and I decide to go there and spend some time with him. And when I do, I write a poem. And this is a poem that I wrote one day. He was a farmer, so his neck tended to be blue from all the wind and dirt. It's called My Father's Neck. Your chest, hospital gown awry, looks girlish today. It is your bluish reptile neck that is known weather. I said to you, are you ready to die? I am, you said. It's too boring around here. It's always accurate. You mean that some other place would be less boring? I told the doctor, he said, he's not ready to go. Why would you live so long? There must have been a fire that nearly blew out, or a large soul, inadequately feathered, that became cold and angered. Some 4-year-old boy in you, chilled by your mother, misprized by your father, said, I will defy, I will win, anyway, I will show them. When Alice was my mother's name, when Alice's well-off sister offered to take your 2 boys during the Depression, you said it again. And now you speak the defiant words to death. Some 4-year-old old man in you does as he likes. He likes to stay alive. Through him you get revenge, persist, endure, overlive, overwhelm, get on top. You gave me this, and I do not refuse it. It is in me. I want to do one more if I can. I'd like to do a poem that I read at his funeral. It's called Prayer for My Father. When I was with him and he was very old, he looked like an old hawk. But it was clear there was also like a 13-year-old in there. And I asked myself, which one is going to live on after he dies? So, thinking about that, the images for this poem came. It's called Prayer for My Father. Your head is still restless, rolling east and west. That body in you, insisting on living, is the old hawk for whom the world darkens. If I am not with you when you die, that is grievous, but just. That part of you cleaned my bones more than once. But I will meet you in the young hawk, whom I see inside both you and me. He will lead you to the Lord of Night, who will give you the tenderness you wanted here. James, you have one?
This is a poem for the old men here, like myself in the room. Prayer for Old Age, William Butler Yeats. God guard me from those thoughts men think in the mind alone. He that sings a lasting song thinks in a marrow bone. From all that makes a wise old man that can be praised of all, oh, what am I that I should not seem for the song's sake a fool? I pray, for fashion's word is out and prayer comes round again, that I may seem, though I die old, a foolish, passionate man.
Yeats again. Oh, I know what I want. You could do it. Do you have Crazy Jane talks to the bishop?
I don't have it, no.
Don't we want to hear it?
Yeah. I don't have it. Yeah.
I've got it.
Crazy Jane.
I've got it. I know
You
I
got
do.
it? I don't have it.
You can't go anywhere without Crazy Jane. I met the bishop on the road, and much said he and I. Those breasts are flat and fallen now. Those veins must soon run dry. Live in a heavenly mansion, not in some foul sty. That's the bishop talking. Crazy Jane answers, fair and foul are near of kin, and fair needs foul, I cried. My friends are gone, but that's a truth, nor grave nor bed denied. Learned in bodily lowliness and in the heart's pride. A woman can be proud and stiff when on love intent, but love has pitched his mansion in the place of excrement. For nothing can be soul or hole that has not first been rent.
A night full of talking that hurts. My worst held back secrets. Everything has to do with loving and not loving. This night will pass. Then we have work to do.
My ego is stubborn, often drunk, impolite. My desire, sensitive, impatient, confused. Please take messages from one to the other. Encourage a conversation. If you throw dust at someone's head, nothing will happen. If you throw water, nothing. But combine them into a lump. That marriage of water and dirt cracks open the head. Afterwards, there are other marriages. These spiritual window shoppers who idly ask, how much is that? Oh no, I'm just looking. They handle 100 items and then put them down. Shadows, shopping with no capital. In this shopping, what is spent is love, and 2 eyes wet with weeping. But these walk into a shop, and their whole lives pass suddenly in that moment, in that shop. Afterwards, someone says, "Where did you go?" "Nowhere." "What did you have to eat?" "Nothing much." Listen, even if you don't know what you want, even if you don't know what you desire, buy something. Buy something just to be part of the exchanging flow. Start a huge, foolish project like Noah. It makes absolutely no difference what people think of you.
The core of masculinity does not derive from being male, nor friendliness from those who console. Your old grandmother says, "Maybe you shouldn't go to school, you look a little pale." Run when you hear that. A father's stern slaps are better. Your bodily soul wants comforting. The severe father wants spiritual clarity. He scolds, but eventually leads you into the open. Pray for a tough instructor to hear and act and stay within you. We have been busy accumulating solace, Make us afraid of how we were. Make us afraid of how we were. Who makes these changes? I shoot an arrow right, it lands left. I ride after a deer and find myself chased by a hog. I plot to get what I want and end up in prison. I dig pits to trap others and fall in. I should be suspicious of what I want.
I'll do a couple of poems of Kabir. Friend, hope for the guest while you are alive. Friend, hope for the guest while you are alive. Jump into experience while you are alive. Think and think while you are alive. If you don't break your ropes while you're alive, you think that ghosts will do it afterwards. What you call salvation belongs to the time before death. The idea that the soul will join with the ecstatic just because the body's rotten, that is all fantasy. The idea that the soul will join with the ecstatic just because the body's rotten, that is all fantasy. What is found now is found then. And if you find nothing now, you will simply end up with an apartment in the city of death with Swedish furniture. If you make love with the divine now, in the next life, you will have the face of satisfied desire. It's a phrase of Blake's. If you make love with the divine now, in the next life, you will have the face of satisfied desire. So plunge into the truth. Find out who the teacher is. Believe in the great sound. Here's the great sound. Believe in the great sound. Kabir says, when the guest is being searched for, it is the intensity of the longing for the guest that does all the work. Kabir says, when the guest is being searched for, it is the intensity of the longing for the guest that does all the work. Kabir says, look at me and you will see a slave of that intensity. Another little poem of Kabir's. Knowing nothing shuts the iron gates. Knowing nothing shuts the iron gates. And the new love opens them. Are you ready for Vasilisa now? knowing nothing shuts the iron gates, and the new love opens them, and the sound of the gates opening wakes the beautiful woman asleep. Kabir says, fantastic. Don't let a chance like this go by.
A chickpea leaps almost over the rim of the pot where it's being boiled. Why are you doing this to me? The cook knocks it down with its ladle. Don't you try to jump out. You think I'm torturing you. I'm giving you flavor, so you can mix with spices and rice and be the lovely vitality of a human being. Remember when you drank rain in the garden? That was for this. Grace first, sexual pleasure, then a boiling new life begins, and the friend has something good to eat.
The Sufis have an old tradition that we came down from another place when we came here. And your job is to get down on this planet and get really messed up so that you get incarnated. If you're too nice, you have to go back and do it again. So there's a certain moment in which you've had enough down here, enough darkness, you got it, and then at that moment there's a desire to turn and go back. And this poem of Rumi's begins at that point. I don't like it here, I want to go back. I don't like it here, I want to go back. You know what the old knowers say? There's someone you love on this planet, and if you lose touch with him for even 20 seconds, you've ruined the whole thing. I say to my desire body, don't come walking over this way. Stay where you are, that's a good place. You know, if there were just one sign of the other world in this town, it'd be helpful. It's true of Fargo, North Dakota, too, believe me. If there were just one sign of the other world in this town, it'd be helpful. Now, when you choose wine, you choose something clear and firm. And when you choose dessert, you choose something rich and nourishing. What is the rest? The rest is all milk mixed with water. The rest is all blurry pictures. The rest is all self-hatred and mocking other people and bombing. So, just be quiet and sit down. The reason is, you're drunk, and this is the edge of the roof. And here's the one that I love the best of Rumi's. You know, they use wine, and they don't mean real wine because none of them drink. They mean that mood that's here sometimes. That's called being drunk. All day I think about it, and then at night I say it. Where did I come from? And what am I supposed to be doing? I have no idea. My soul is from elsewhere, I'm sure of that. And I intend to end up there. This drunkenness began in some other tavern. When I get back around to that place, I'll be completely sober. This drunkenness began in some other tavern. When I get back around to that place, I'll be completely sober. Meanwhile, I'm like a bird from another continent, sitting in this aviary. The day is coming when I fly off. But who is it now in my ear who hears my voice? Who says words with my mouth? Who is it that looks out of my eyes? What is the soul? I can't stop asking. If I could just taste one sip of an answer, I could break out of this prison for drunks. I didn't come here of my own accord, and I can't go back that way. Let whoever brought me here take me back. I love that. I didn't come here, oh, drunks always talk that way. I didn't come here on my own accord. Let whoever brought me here take me back. This poetry, I never know what I'm going to say. I don't plan it. When I'm outside the saying of it, I get very quiet, and I hardly speak at all. I think we need something to
This concludes Men and the Life of Desire with Robert Bly, James Hillman, and Michael Meade. Produced by Oral Tradition Archives.